You got finance bros, you got gym bros, you got stoner bros, you got lax bros. We're doing a mock draft on Sleeper tonight with our own bro. Producer, hit that button. Welcome to another edition of the Dynasty Pulse right here on Fantasy Sports Advice Network and probably 105.1 FM talking West Tennessee. I'm bigz, although it says Grindberg. Schultzy's in the building. Grindberg's down there. We got Coach Retzlaff. We got a special guest. This guy is a 3-time returner. We have him on every year. And one of our favorite guys in the industry. We're excited to welcome Derek Brown, a.k.a. DBro from FantasyPros for his 3rd time on the show. He's a fantasy football analyst specializing in player rankings, draft outlooks, DFS plays, and betting insights. Thousands of episodes of audio content under his belt. His analysis on target shares, fantasy points per game, and strategic roster building has helped managers make smarter decisions across the fantasy community. He's here to join us for a live rookie mock draft over there on Sleeper. We got a bunch of people in the draft already. We're going to talk some rookies with DBro. So let's introduce and get probing.
Went on to win the contest by lip-syncing Ice Ice Baby.
Dance. Crush speaker that booms. I'm killing your brain like a poisonous mushroom. Deadly.
Oh, that's a great song.
It is.
Bow, bow, I'm Derek, and I can sing high like this.
Say hello to my little friend.
Banger. What's up, Derek?
Dude, that was a lit video intro. I love that movie, by the way. I'm watching this and I'm just like, holy crap, man. This is the chops. The editing chops. And y'all are just flexing on the YouTube streets.
Did we just become best friends?
Yeah, that was
Love it.
wonderful,
Love it.
man. Absolutely
Welcome.
wonderful. Shout out and thank y'all for having me. This is wonderful.
Love it. I'm glad you enjoyed that.
Yeah, we're always glad to have you. This is your 3rd time back. Love hanging out with you down at the expo when I'm upright, and it's good to have you back.
Is the 3rd guest spot? Is that which one is that? Is that the gold guest spot? Do I do I get like a participation trophy? What happens with that? I don't know.
You get a probing is what you get, DBro. You get the probing. You get the probing from us. We're going to probe you for some questions, and we're going to do a great mock draft. But, DBro, before we get into that, tell everybody and our viewers where to find all your awesome work. I know everybody already knows, but tell everybody, refresh them if they are, familiar with what you got going on.
Man, far too kind. If you don't know, then you're probably better off. Who knows? Well, everything is at Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros, man. Right now is all obviously, we're here for Dynasty and rookies and what have you. It's all NFL draft stuff, all Dynasty stuff. All my content is at Fantasy Pros. Right now, I'm currently working on my QB prospect primer is live. So is my running back primer. I'm going through all the prospects, watching the film, going through the stats and stuff, writing all these guys up. Right now, I think I'm 70-ish players deep. Before round 1 kicks off of the NFL draft, I'll be 100-plus players deep as far as skill players, so quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, written up on the site. My top 100 will be live on the site, and all of my positional primers will be out. And really, again, it's all at Fantasy Pros, but rocking the 2 new the 2 new YouTube channels that we've launched this year. One being Dynasty Fantasy Pros. You could find obviously all my Dynasty content over there, as well as on there and on the Tailgate channel, which is all just straight NFL talk, and rocking the NFL, the Fantasy Pros NFL Draft Show once a week with my co-host Seth Woolcock. Shout out to that dude. He is freaking fantastic, sharp as hell. Love doing the show with him. We're bringing on a ton of guests throughout it, man.
Yeah, I know Seth well. He's a very good affiliate of our network here,
Yep.
Fantasy
I was
Sports
to say
Advice
we're all
Network.
hanging out at the expo, dude. Yearly.
Yeah. I mean, IBT Media is awesome. They run an incredible, fantasy football tournament. It's the draft night out. So if you're ever going to the expo, folks, be sure to check out the IBT Media stuff and everything that Seth does there as well. He's got a great company, and he's now working full time for Fantasy Pro. So that's really awesome and good for him. Guys, we got a mock draft headed up here. We've got a lot of rookie talk going on. We're doing a 4-round mock, and we're going to be talking about some guys after the show here that, after the mock draft, that are going to be potential guys that are going to be, stocking up or stocking down potentially based off of where they're sitting right now in their draft capital. But that's for the later portion. But let's bring up this draft board here, Schultzy. We're going to get it going right away. I'll let the chat know that we're about to start here. Now, DBro, you're in you're the 108. That's a pretty peculiar situation here if you're a dynasty manager, because I think the top 5 guys right now are pretty set in stone. You're looking at that draft capital, but this is the type of season and the draft happening coming up here where maybe some guys might steam up and that value of that 108 might come to play. So what are you thinking here with that 108? And are you just hoping for a guy, or are you going based off of talent? What's your angle here?
So pre-NFL draft, it really comes down to talent and how I've evaluated these guys from the prospect standpoint. Because once we see draft capital attached to these players and stuff, rankings post-draft, all that kind of stuff is going to shift. I'm not going to tell you it's going to shift wildly, but it is going to shift because I think we have a large consortium of players outside of, maybe the top tight end, the top running back, and the top 5 to maybe 6 wide receivers. We're all like, are they going to go in round 2 or are they going to go in round 4? So there is a large contingent of players where rankings and what we think about them and landing spot and all that kind of stuff is going to play a huge factor in this. I honestly when I hopped into this, I picked the 108 because I want to see who falls there. And I think it's a really interesting range. And I think a lot of times, and the whole entire, I'm not telling everybody this draft class is absolutely amazing and it's chock full of alphas and stars and what have you. But I will say that I'm not saying I lean the other direction, but when we get so much hate on a draft class, it makes me want to buy into it. You're going to get these later round firsts for probably cheaper than you ever should because everybody just seemingly hates this freaking rookie class. So honestly, I picked the 108 because I'm curious who's going to fall there. And I don't really kind of follow the echo chamber. I try to do my own work, stick to my own process, and let the chips fall where they may. So my rankings are going to be, in line with a lot of people in some aspects, but also wildly different. If you've been on social media this week, you see that people hate my top 5 wide receivers, and I do not care. I'm going to stick to my process, and again, we'll see what happens.
Love it. Love the take. And we're going to get this party started. Obviously, Schultz, you have the chalk pick here at 101. We know Jeremiyah Love is probably the pick in every single format, elite metrics. He could do it all. He's got speed. He's got pass catching. He can block. He's got everything you're looking for in a power horse running back. Just the chalk pick for here, man, or what?
Oh, yeah. You don't think twice about this one.
All right. We started the draft. So put your money where your mouth is and let's see where that happens.
Hey, I did want to say when we fired this up and bigz mentioned this is the 3rd year we've had DBro on. DBro, you've been fantastic. Year 1 and 2, right? We're pumped to have you back. These are big shoes to fill here, man. If I know there's one thing bigz loves, it's a 3rd-year breakout.
There it is. We love it. I love it. All right. So now I'm on the clock, and this is a pick for me, depending on where my roster build is at. I may be depending on a quarterback, and I'm not opposed to taking Fernando Mendoza here, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to pick Mekhi Lemon, who is my wide receiver one right now, headed in to this draft class. I see a lot of great metrics here. Yards per route run above 3, incredible stuff. He's a guy that I see, with the same frame, similar, style to Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think that he could be a guy that could be comparable to fit into a lineup. And, right now, depending on where these guys land, currently he's my wide receiver 1.
Am I crazy? Is this super flex, right?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Coach,
Yeah, you-
coach,
Hey,
coach
you
is a
can
flight
hold it,
planner
baby.
here.
You can hold it. You can hold
Mendoza,
it.
dude. Good
Hey,
Lord.
You can hold it, baby. You can have Fernando Mendoza. You can hold that falling knife.
Wow.
All right, talk about it then, coach. That's a controversial pick here because,
Yeah.
you know, like, I mean, you could obviously trade out of that pick at this
Mm.
stage, but I mean, what's your thought process? You obviously been
Sure.
high on KC this whole offseason, so you're
Yeah,
you've been-
absolutely. Look, Fernando Mendoza, where the knife should have stopped falling was at the 102 with Grindberg, but I understand it shouldn't have gone further to 3, but hey, why not keep it going? Look, in a draft, you can get Fernando Mendoza. You ought to trade off the 102 if you're simulating, right? Because you go off the 102, you can get yourself a quarterback plus. Because if the range on Mendoza is Jared Goff to a ceiling of Brock Purdy, why not tear off and get a little bit more? What you can do with the 101 with Jeremiyah Love, you can do in just a maybe 75% level with somebody like a Fernando Mendoza. So if you're at the 102 and you're quarterback needy, I say you tear off and trade off. But yeah, DBro, Mendoza didn't fall to you. And so it'll be interesting to see what you have here at the 108. Are you tempted by the Sadiq?
I think I know where DBro's going. I think because based off of his rankings,
Tyson,
he may be a
obviously.
Denzel Boston boy here. Is he that?
Oh yeah, dude. That's honestly why I picked this range, is because I was very curious. And coach, you kind of screwed me here. I was hoping KC was going to fall to me. If he didn't fall to me, it's either him or it's Denzel Boston for me. And I was curious if one of those guys was going to fall for me. And yes, I will select Denzel Boston.
Well,
He's
DBro,
my wide
tell
receiver
us.
in this class, man.
What's
Go
the
ahead.
bullish spot on Casey Concepcion? Tell us, because I love telling people, but man, I love hearing it from you.
He's my wide receiver too of this class. I love Casey. I think any narratives around him being too small to play on the outside is kind of ridiculous to me. The drop stuff, I think, again, is a misnomer. I'm not worried about his hands. I'm not worried about drops. I think that gets classically overrated. Like, unless you're Quentin Johnston and you fight the ball at the catch point, then I'm not really that worried about drops. And I've seen too many spots in contested catch situations on film where Casey Concepcion comes down with a ball in traffic, a contested catch, he snags it or he snags the ball, and then he gets immediately freaking lit up and he holds on to it. I'm not worried about his hands, but dude, Boston, I love this kid. Like, I think if you're looking at the 3 best route runners of this class, for me, it is Carnell Tate, it is Casey Concepcion, and it is Denzel Boston. And for everybody that says, like, oh, is he too slow, blah, blah, blah. Dude, if you go to chase wide receiver speed and all you care about is 4 threes and stuff, you are going to go down a very dangerous and horrible path a lot of different times. Give me the guy that runs a 4.5 that has route nuance and is a technician, has body control, contested catch ability, and he's actually a proven wide receiver over the guy that just runs fast on a straight line.
What you just said is dead on. I forgot who posted this, so this is kind of vague. Someone posted about like the top 30 wide receiver combine times of the past, I don't know, like 10 years or something. And like there's like 2 good players on it.
It's a negative correlation with 40 time to wide receiver that there is. That's real. Yep.
Love it. Looks like this guy's on autopilot. He may fold in here, but we're going to take a break after the first round just to recap it here. But there's some interesting picks here, you know, with this running back class being so open after Jeremiyah Love, and you know, seeing, you know, Jadarian Price hit that 107 here, you know, letting, you know, guys like Denzel Boston, you know, and Kenyon Sadiq drop here without seeing draft capital. That's a pretty ballsy move. I mean, I think eventually, you know, he will get some sort of capital, which will turn into something nice for Price. And maybe that's what Bradley is looking at here, as, you know, looking ahead of the curve here. Where do you guys have Price? Does anybody have him as their running back 2 here right now?
He's my RB3. I mean, he's competing with Mike Washington Jr. For Brad to take him that high, he's got to believe in the hype that maybe he's a first-round pick for me, taking him over somebody like Boston and Sadiq. And maybe that comes to fruition, but there's just a lot with Jadarian Price. I like his profile. I don't love his profile. It's kind of an adventure with him as a pass protector. The pass catching chops are limited at best. And so does he get shoved into like an early down only role in the NFL? And then like, again, we're playing the draft capital battle. Like if he's not a second round pick and he does fall to the third round, like if we look back at this post NFL draft, it's probably going to look aggressive to take him at the 107.
Yeah, I mean, and we'll have to see. I mean, I think he's basing off of a great landing spot. He's got some explosive metrics here. So, Coach, what do you got there? You look like you're eager to talk.
It's a consortium, as DBro was talking about, where you hit that 108 patch to maybe the 2.4, right? Right now, it's going to be malleable up until we get some clarity. So any of the four of Emmett Johnson, Mike Washington, Jadarian Price, Jonah Coleman, even throw in somebody like Katron Allen, we're going to get definition and clarity for them, and then it's going to pivot them around, kind of like Flubber. They're going to bounce around to the spot that they belong. And right now, in the exercise where you go Jadarian Price at the 107, you're buying the hype on Daniel Jeremiyah for 2 months, who's been round one buzz. You're buying the buzz on the Seahawks landing spot. But at this point in time, it's a little early on that. So just understand, I think at the 107, this is an exercise.
Right, I would take the field over taking Price as a first round pick. I don't see it happening. I'll just say that.
Yeah, me neither. I don't think anybody sneaks in there, outside of Love, obviously. All right, let's recap this first round here, guys. And that's Jeremiah Love at 1, Mekhi Lemon at 2, Carnell Tate at 3, and Jordan Tyson at 4. Pretty chalky at this stage. Obviously Mendoza would have been there. We talked about that already here. 105, Casey Concepcion, Fernando Mendoza at 6, Jadarian Price at 7, Denzel Boston at 8, and then Kenyon Sadiq at 9, Jonah Coleman at 10, Skylar Bell, which was an auto pick, probably didn't sneak in there, so that allowed bigz to swoop in and get Eli Stowers, who I'm high on, who is my tight end 1. Anybody else has got him as a tight end 1 in this class right now?
Not me. Nope. Sadiq is mine.
Yep. All right, Sadiq as it is. Okay, I just wanted to see where our temperature was at there.
Hey,
all right,
it's a good point. It's a good point. There's been truncation between the two. It's gotten post NFL Combine. They're more neck and neck. In post landing spot, they could be back to back.
And I'm just sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I like the discount I might get off of Stowers. You know what I'm saying? Because they're gonna. I think they're going to be very close. I like what I've seen with the production throughout his career, rather than snippets of what Sadiq has seen. And I mean, obviously, he's playing in a role with another elite tight end in Oregon. So I'm excited to see what Sadiq can do. He's got that athleticism that is insane, and I think he's going to get really good draft capital, which will make it really hard for him not to be in the higher end of this first round. So I just love what I see in Stowers, and I think if I could get a discount there, maybe 5 or 6 picks later, I'd be willing to trade back and take him. And obviously, this is all landing spot dependent.
My only worry with him is, and the reason why I have Sadiq as my clear tight end 1 is Sadiq can block. I think he's going to enter the NFL as an every down starter or every down player. I really worry about Stowers. He's going to be landing spot dependent. A team that drafts him, you have to believe or hope that he gets like the Harold Fannin plus run out of a team builds their passing attack around him or looks at him as being like, we are going to make this guy an integral part of our passing attack. Because the downside is he could be Dalton Kincaid. He could be a 50% route share guy, or he could be Aronde Gadsden. Like that could be who he is.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed. Yeah. But I mean, yeah. Okay. Mike Washington goes at the 201. We're back on here, and I love this. I got my Omar Cooper so late.
Oh man, dude, good pick.
He is my wide receiver 5. Actually, I got him ahead of Boston at this stage for various reasons. I honestly think that Omar Cooper may actually steam up into the first round here with some draft capital, and with that is lights up for me. I think what I've seen, there's not a huge sample size for him, but what I do see is elite, toughness, those after the catch yards, and he can be very versatile. That red zone looks too. He's just going to be a guy that I would love to see in like San Francisco or the Rams as, a succession plan to Devontae Adams. Like I just see that being a very good landing spot for him. But Cooper at the 2 02 is a huge one for me. I haven't seen him slide that far in a while.
I really like Omar Cooper. I think there's honestly, Grindberg, I think there's a very interesting conversation that people are not having of there's more proof of concept as an outside wide receiver and a vertical element to Omar Cooper's game that I don't know that we have proof that Mekhi Lemon can do those things. So considering the two guys you took here, I think I'm not saying I'm making the case because I have Lemon ranked over Cooper. You can make a case that Omar Cooper is a more complete wide receiver than Mekhi Lemon right now.
And those are the type of receivers I like rather than those, outside X boundary receivers who are those contested catch, gurus where I think where a guy like, where they're fading out the slot receiver, the smaller guy where these guys can move over the field. And I think that, Cooper can play the outside a little bit as well. And I think he's going to be able to show that in the NFL. And in a Cignetti offense that is, an NFL style offense, they've been educated, they are professionals, and they're going to be trained that way. And I think all of these guys, Surratt included, are going to come out of the gate looking like pros. And in the right offense, I think they're going to do well. Ted Hurst, love it. All right, we're going to we're going to talk about him a lot more in depth here, and he's steaming more and more up here these boards. And this second round is really interesting, and I'm going to like to, talk about some breakdowns here and what some people are thinking. I mean, Zachariah Branch is certainly a wild card here. DBro, I want your thoughts on him, and are you willing to take a dart throw on him so early in the second, or so late in the second here?
I'm not willing to take Branch this early only because I think we know who Zachariah Branch is, and I feel like we're just going down. I feel like we've already learned this lesson before, guys, where we can talk about Malachi Corley, we could talk about Rondell Moore. I feel like this is Rondell Moore 2.0. I like Zach Branch's game, but we get into this whole thing about projecting what a player could be when a lot of times that archetype of player, like a Zach Branch, the NFL just drafts these guys and they say, look, it's not about who you could be. We're drafting you for who you are. And in a league where we're going to more 12 and 13 personnel, more condensed formations, and the slot receiver is only becoming a 50 to 60% route per drop back guy in some offenses, that's very concerning. Where if you would have rewinded 10 years ago and everybody's running 80 to 90% 11 personnel, I would have been much higher on a slot combined player with the way that I view him, like a Zachariah Branch.
Yeah, I agree with that take. Biggs is more of a Branch guy. Do you want to talk about how, you might have taken him here, right? Probably at your pick if it would have slid to you.
If he would have fallen to the 212, yeah, he's Kadarius Toney without the attitude problem.
So you think he's got some upside here? He can be versatile. I mean, I just look at where the slot position is moving, especially the small statured slots. I think you really got to be elite in, maybe Zachariah Branch is that, but I just don't see it.
Yeah, I agree with DBro's point that the offenses are changing, and Zachariah Branch is the kind of prospect that his kick return ability would have put him on the field 10 years ago, a lot like, some of the other Raiders, some of the Raiders kick returners that have come out because of their speed, gotten kick returns, and been able to stay on the field after a punt return, things like that. He's going to be specialized for a while. In Dynasty, I don't hate it late in the second round, especially if you want to stick him on a taxi squad and wish down the road. Obviously, if he drops into the third round, that's even better. But he's a very talented kid and could force his way onto the field more than we imagine.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about this second round. And Mike Washington is 201, who, I've got him as my running back 3 in this class. Anybody got him higher than that right now? Actually, so he's my running back 2. Sorry, I got him as 2 right now. Anybody got him at 2?
Same.
DBro, you're there? Yeah,
I'm right with you on that one.
Yeah, Schultzy, you're there with him? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Coach, who's your running back 2?
I've got him parked there for right now. We've been malleable and adjusting to all the steam. But again, that 2 through 6 clump of running backs, I'm telling you, the draft capital is going to dictate.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so Omar Cooper goes at the 202. Then we got Emmett Johnson, followed by Elijah Surratt, Jeremy Bernard, Katron Allen. That's Ty Simpson, and then Ted Hurst. We're going to get into Ted Hurst a little bit later, DBro. So I'll let you have some flame there. Zachariah Branch, and then Chris Brazell, which I saw. I think he's got some upside. Floating down that far up the board, I think is a pretty far slide from what I've seen lately in drafts. Nick Singleton at 211 and Chris Bell at 212. DBro, do you got anything that popped out to you about that second round that needs some attention at this stage?
Coach, give me your thoughts on Jeremy Bernard, because I know the consensus is high on him. I know there's definitely a hive for him. I'm not in on him as a player. I just don't see it. So I'm curious where you are, because looking at because in my ranks, like I've got Surratt over him, and he went one pick before you, but like I've got Ted Hurst, I've got Brazell over him. So I'm curious, what do you see with Jeremy?
Hey, it's beautiful. And I was going to ask you, contrary reflexive to the other side, Surratt, Bernard, who do you have deciphering between those two? It sounds like you like Surratt. Because for me, it's a firewall of Surratt and Bernard. They go back to back all over the place in these mock drafts. And it's all the way towards the 2.829. It's all the way towards the 2.1 and 2.2. One goes, the other goes. I've noticed that's been the pattern. Really love how he was able to, in a high volume throw offense, generate 19% target share. See a lot of catches where he's in a bubble of green grass around him. He can evade defenders and create space for himself. He controls his feet. He can fight momentum. Instead of going out of bounds, he has a swift dead leg ability, and he's shifty. So I really like a lot of what he has going on. He had a very strong NFL combine. You have a clump of receivers where Jeremy Bernard just gets, the honorable mention in the top 10s, but nobody really stands out and plants their flag on somebody like a Jeremy Bernard. I've seen that steam, and we're not talking about Cleveland, for somebody like Jeremy Bernard pushing post NFL combine. And I want to be early to the party, not late. You have mid round 2 draft capital via PFF and all over the place. So we're talking about there's depth to this receiver class. Jeremy Bernard is one of those players who it's easy to gloss over because, hey, we are enamored with the top 5, top 6 receivers, if you want to include Concepcion, Omar Cooper in that tier. So, yeah, I want to be early to the party on Jeremy Bernard.
Yeah, I just don't see the ceiling with him. Like last year, he was 175th in yards per route run, 73rd in the year before that. Like, I think he's going to be a solid NFL player. My problem is, like, I just don't see him being elite in any certain trait. I feel like he's kind of like your dollar store version of Surratt, what Surratt brings to the table. But for me, like at the NFL level, it's like when I project him, I think all the draft capital stuff is kind of crazy to me. Like the way that I view him, I think he's probably going to go in round 3 or round 4. I could be wrong because the NFL Draft Consortium, like I've seen mocks where he's gone in round one, and I'm like, what in the ever loving heck am I missing?
That's a little rich.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
so here's the question, DBro: are there any bullish spots for somebody like a Jeremy Bernard where you'd be like, okay, I gotta pause it? Maybe it's the Rams in round 2.
I don't, only because I don't look at him as I look at him as being somebody that is going to be a better NFL player than he is going to be in fantasy. I don't look at him as being like somebody where I don't see him being in the NFL like a high-end target share earner. So for me, if he's going to be, regardless of landing spot, like in the way that I view him, like a 15 to 17% target share earner, then it's landing spot agnostic. You know what I mean? Like, because I mean, like we all know, guys, like earning targets is a skill. You're either a guy that can earn a 20 to 25% target share, or you're not.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? You make some really good points. And Jim Coventry, when he was on, he was really high on Jeremy Bernard. So it was interesting to see a contrast here. And it may just be.
I could be wrong about him.
No, totally. And I think there's something to be said here about what you say there about the yards per route run and where you see here. And to me, that's a huge indicator. So I'm going to certainly somebody that I've drafted a little bit in some areas, and I'm going to be a little bit more skeptical about it moving forward. So thanks for that, DBro. All right. What do you see here next up? Okay, so now we're in the third round. We had Jacoby Lane, who, a lot of guys have been steaming him up lately. Obviously, a great combine. And I think Chev had him as a guy that he thinks is going to be probably rising up after the draft, too, based off of his landing spot, too. So, interesting guy here.
He was my 212 if Bell didn't fall to me.
Yeah, Bell's a great pick there too, and it sounds like his recovery is definitely going really well, and a guy that everybody was really talking about halfway through the college season before that injury happened. And what's your thoughts on Chris Bell here, DBro? I mean, we're going back to the second, but that's an interesting pick.
Yeah, I mean, I like Chris Bell. I don't love Chris Bell. The problem with Chris Bell is that at Louisville, and I think this is indicative to his skill set, this dude just ran crossing routes. It was basically everything underneath. It was in breakers, out breakers. My question is, like, they gave him kind of early career, if we can all be kind of rewind about not who this player is now, but who he came into the NFL as. They gave him, like, basically the Tennessee rookie season AJ Brown route tree. And the problem with it is I just have questions that because of this usage that I didn't see verticality from Chris Bell's game. And I have questions about can he stack corners? Can he get downtown? Is he a triple level threat, or is he a guy that are we seeing like that type of usage? Is it indicative because of his skill as a player? Because he's good at those things, but give me the guy that you can route up and he can run the whole tree. And if he's going to be a guy that he's more of an underneath possession threat, then I'm not as into him. And he's going to be more of a landing spot dependent type of player for me.
Hey, for landing spot, DBro, what about the idea of those drags crossers paired with Harold Fannin Jr. in Cleveland? Would that get you a little more bullish?
I would be okay with that. And the other spot that actually came out in the news the other day is Tyler Shuck is apparently pounding the table for him in the Saints draft room for them to take him. So if you were to tell me you pair, like, if they're super high or Shuck has a voice in that room and he goes late second round and he ends up in New Orleans and he's fighting to be the number 2 target, and you pair his ability underneath with Chris Olave's speed and verticality, yeah, I'd be a little bit more in.
The other landing spot is the Raiders, and if they draft Mendoza thrives on out routes over the middle.
My only pushback about that, bigz, is that they kind of have that guy in Jack Besh. Now, I know he didn't do anything in his rookie season, so maybe they're just out on him at this point, but you kind of got that skill set already there too. Sure. I'm going to take one of my love list players of this freaking draft. Give me Christian Watson 2.0.
See, he wasn't even in sleeper for so many, weeks here, and I'm glad he's finally come up here and finally seen where he actually
was top of my queue.
Yeah,
yep.
He's
super ADP, baby. You gotta love it. You're searching players, and
yeah, exactly. But I was searching him, and I'll be talking a little bit more about him as well in the next half, because he's a guy I think as well might make an impact after the draft here, because I think teams are going to be on him for a lot of different metrics here. I think these North Dakota boys, both of them, are going to be some surprisers in this draft, and you never know what could happen here. So yeah, I love that. I love that pick there, DBro, and a guy that I had in my queue for sure.
Lance is my wide receiver 9, just to give context for people.
Yeah, he's my wide receiver 9 as well. I'm right there with you, buddy. He's up there. So, I mean, a lot of things I love about him. Like you mentioned, the Christian Washington comp, obviously North Dakota boy, and I'll break him down in the next segment, because he's a guy that I think is really important in this draft class, and I think he's gonna pull up some steam here. Eric McAllister, another guy, I think he's got an interesting profile as well. Anybody have any strong takes on McAllister at this stage? I think that's a pretty good value here, pretty late. Not really.
I'm still getting through McAllister's film, so I'll sit this one out.
Nothing strong.
He's got some interesting metrics, and I want to see this. I mean, it was an interesting pick there. So I've seen him go later. So it was a queue here. Though this is getting pretty slim at this stage now. So this is where this draft class really starts to really fall apart, in my opinion.
One note on McAllister: wasn't he didn't really do much at the combine, correct?
No, No.
And that was a big issue because we were supposed to get track lead speed on display, and we didn't see that. So that's really put a damper on. There was a little bit of buzz for him. And I think that's flatline because that was really his main ticket.
I'll say I'm halfway through his tape eval. I don't see that type of speed. I would be surprised if he was sub 4.5.
And maybe that's why
again, like wide receiver raw speed isn't everything. So like I'm not gonna like bump him down boards because of that. Like, but I'm halfway through his film eval and stuff like that. I like him. I don't love him at this stage. Now again, that might change.
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting one. 2.95 career yards per route run is a metric that sticks out to me. He's a big guy too, 6'3", 205. He's got that can have that contested catch ability. So as a late round dart throw, maybe he could make his way on into a lineup if he gets some sort of draft capital if a team likes him.
And Grindberg, you say his draft is thinning out. I still have a full Q board.
Well, that's are these guys going to be playable at the next level is the question. See, Delp, that was the guy I had up on my queue here. So
that was going to be mine.
Yeah. Let's recap your round 3 where things are thinning out a bit. Obviously, Jacoby Lane, Damon Claiborne, Brendan Thompson. That's one of Chev's guys. So I would love to have had him talk a little bit more about him. Do you have any thoughts on Thompson? Like, I mean, there's been some discord on Twitter about comps between him and Branch. Do you have a preference between the two?
I mean, I think they're both in a similar. Like, I literally have them back to back. Branch is my wide receiver 16. Thompson is my wide receiver 17. My thing with Thompson is I feel like we're doing the discount version of Xavier Worthy all over again, with a lot of the same pluses, a lot of the same minuses. The speed is elite. Thompson's a pretty good route runner, but the thing with me is his size definitely shows up in his profile in multiple different spots. So I don't see Thompson becoming a high-end target earner at the NFL. It's kind of like again, and if we're talking about, okay, look, if he's not Xavier Worthy and he doesn't get amazing draft capital, is he just KJ Hamler 2.0? That's not a player that I'm immensely emphatic with.
I'll give a little pushback on Chev's behalf, and I'll make Chev's argument for him because he said it multiple times on the program. He loves Brandon Thompson, the ball tracking downfield, and he doesn't lose a step of speed. So while you make the Xavier Worthy comp, I've heard Chev say that's where he separates from Xavier Worthy, right? Like he can look over his shoulder, not lose a step of speed, and pull in the ball, and that's where Chev loves this guy.
Yeah, but again, at that size, he's not going to be a red zone threat. So you're really banking on the home runs like in the NFL. So that's going to limit him to like what he's at the best, like the fever dream, a 5 to 7 touchdown guy every single year at that size. And if he's regulated to just being a deep threat, what kind of target share is he drawing? He's going to be a 12 to 15% target share guy. And again, at that size, yes, there's zone coverage in the NFL, but you know what I mean? It's like, if he's not going to ever be a high-end target earner and he's pigeonholed into a deep threat role, you're talking about a guy in dynasty circles that turns into what? A wide receiver 3 or a flex play or a best ball, like a dynasty best ball guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and both those guys, they're 16 and 17 in your rankings are kind of just coin flipping at this stage. So yeah,
well, to DBro's point, it's round 14 or 15 in a best ball underdog draft, and you have no problem pressing Brendan Thompson, but then redraft or dynasty when there's a lineup. Oh, dude, man, you took him. Oh man, I was going next.
Love it. I'm glad when you can hear the rattle of the draft room, going on when you make a pick. But yeah, I mean, North Dakota, it's the closest state to my Manitoba province here, so I get a little bit of coverage here from North Dakota. So
province means state in Canadian.
I almost took him in round 3, Grindberg.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. So yeah. He's actually and I know he's DBro's quarterback too as well. I just think that in this class, you never know what could develop right now. I mean, obviously, if Ty Simpson gets first round draft capital, I'll have to put him there. But at this stage, I just love what I see from Cole Payton. DBro, talk a little bit more about him, because obviously you're really high on him, and he's your quarterback too.
Yeah, he's my QB2 of this class. I love the intangibles. I love the talent of the kid. And can we all just as a collective stop throwing out these crappy Tim Tebow comps? I feel like it's just lazy, dude. Like, there is nothing outside of similar size and okay, he has rushing ability that compares him to Tim Tebow. Like, this kid's arm talent is nothing like Tebow. Like, the ability to accurately place balls, just drop them in a bucket. We can all talk about, okay, the level of competition and what have you. I think this is a guy that absolutely could go late round 2 of the NFL draft, considering the quarterback class. People can say that's crazy. How many round 2 quarterbacks have we seen go? I mean, like, everybody just crapped on the Tyler Shuck pick. That surprised people last year. Everybody crapped on Jalen Hurts going to the Eagles in round 2, and they, had to wipe the egg off their face at the moment. So I just look at Cole Payton. If we were in a world of 10 years ago, we've seen this happen. Small school quarterbacks. You could talk about Josh Allen. You could talk about Carson Wentz. You could talk about Trey Lance. You could talk about all these different guys that came out of small schools. Did they all work out? No. Did a lot of them work out? Yep. So I feel like if we were in a different iteration, a pre-Anthony Richardson version of the NFL, Cole Payton would be getting more love, especially considering this quarterback class than he's getting.
Love it. Yeah.
Agreed.
I don't know if I'm going to go flag. I could go flag plant. I don't think it's the point. I could bring him up here. My heart says to go with Haynes King, but then he ends up being a UDFA, and I'm not worried about it. So I'm just going to go with another guy that I like, probably more than consensus. Kevin Coleman
there
Jr.
It is. We are fans.
Mizzou. So,
dude, he's above Zach Branch in my rankings, and the difference between those two players is Zach Branch, it's a projection. Can he be more than a screen player? Kevin Coleman Jr. is a slot guy, but he has route chops too. I think he could play more on the outside than people give him credit for.
I think that's a great call. And I think where he steamed down is that he didn't test fast running a straight line, where maybe Branch was working towards that, and that wasn't part of Coleman's game. So like, I love the call here. I think, he's probably the best discount out of all those guys, in my opinion. I think Coleman is the profile, like you mentioned, because he can run some routes and he can separate and he can do those little things well. So yeah, I think Coleman, go for the late round dart throw over, maybe a round 2 pick on Branch.
My wide receiver 12, by the way.
There it is. Yeah.
On Branch, do you see yourself just having no Branch in Dynasty?
Probably not, because he's going to go earlier than I'm willing to take him, because there's a lot of people that are super high on him. And again, I feel like we're not learning the lessons of yesteryear, where we've already seen what happened to Rondell Moore, and it never materialized that a player that was used like that. And then people went down this exact same rabbit hole with Malachi Corley. And it's like, when are we going to learn, man? Like, it's not about what we think and the projection of what he could do. A lot of times these teams draft this guy for what he can do. Like, it's not the projection. They draft him because of the player that he is, and not trying to say, okay, like, let's try to get you to do all these different things that you might not be able to. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. But again, there's such a high screen rate. Dude, somebody sniped the ever living crap out of you. That's so funny. Go ahead. You take the floor.
The fact that Jaydn Ott just went is absolute craziness.
I thought that was a sounder at first with the emphasis you put on it. I swear. I thought somebody hit the soundboard real fast.
No. I thought for sure that he would be there. That's
there was real pain in that.
Absolute insanity to me.
Oh, my God. I've been holding in a pee, and I think some dribbled out there, Biggs.
Somebody kicked that man in the shin.
Yeah.
Someone created
I love that it happened, but that dude was on auto pick, and Jaydn was like in the 2500s in this like ranking in the sleeper. So he searched for Jaydn.
I was
He
fixing to
did.
say, so he got off of auto
It's
pick and
auto
decided
AI
to choose violence.
simulation.
He just chose violence.
May not have known
When
it, but he
somebody
sure
wakes
did.
up of an auto pick and says, well, you know what? Let's make this interesting.
Oh gosh!
Okay, that was
So
awesome.
little Jaydn update. He participated in the Oklahoma Pro Day after not getting a combine invite, and he did very, very well. Ran a 4.4640. He confirmed my priors from watching him his freshman and sophomore years at Cal, and then at the Cal Pro Day, he went and he ran the shuttle and the 3-cone with his alums. Playing catch with Jaron Keave Sungapolatelli. Just having a fun time chopping it up, and he should be drafted at this point. So I have high hopes for Jaydn. We'll talk about him more a little bit.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into that section here where we're going to talk about guys that were either higher or lower on headed into the draft, where we think that their post-draft value will shift pretty considerably, whether it's good or bad. So it's either their current perception, their draft scenario, or their dynasty impact that's going to value here. And we're going to start with DBro's player. So, Schultzy, bring up the slides, and we'll get back to the draft board later on if we have a bit of time. But let's get through these players first, and then see where we're at that stage. So, DBro, you picked him in the second round. Obviously, a guy that you're really high on from Georgia State here. Had a really, really good 2025. So talk about Ted Hurst and what you see from him and where you see his draft capital headed.
I think he's on the borderline of like round 2, round 3. I think he's probably going to go in round 3 of the NFL draft. Basically, this is a day 2 guy, and that's where I think he should go. And you're seeing now that kind of the stuff's coming out about he's getting top 30 visits. I think he acquitted himself well for what do you want to see these guys that come out of the small schools like a Ted Hurst or Bryce Lance when they get opportunities to level up and face higher competition? What do they do with it? Ted Hurst went to the Senior Bowl and played extremely well. And the film for him is fantastic, man. Like he's tested well. The film is freaking awesome. I know he's not going to pop from a metric standpoint. I think a lot of that comes down to because, again, this is really more of a film take for me and loving this guy like I do because the metrics, he's 104th and 178th at a small school over the last 2 years in yards per route run. So he's not popping in that metric. But again, if you want to get deeper into the weeds, last year he was 24th in missed tackles force amongst all FBS and FCS wide receivers, a minimum of 50 targets. This guy has a fully developed route tree. He's got a varied release package off the line. He can beat press. And for a player, he did come in a little bit heavier than what I thought, considering what he was listed at. His play strength is fantastic. He doesn't get pushed off routes. He leaves college with a 61.1% contested catch rate. He turns 50-50 balls into 60-40 balls. I love this kid. Like, I think, I don't know why he didn't transfer from Georgia State with the NIL era, but he didn't. But I think the NFL is going to love this player. I think they're going to draft this wide receiver a lot higher than if you're looking at mocks or mock draft database. He's probably a player that's lagging in the 4th or 5th round territory. I think he's going at his floor somewhere in round 3 of the NFL draft.
And I just want to throw out real quick, if anybody is out there that's watching that doesn't know that Georgia State is an actual school that plays college football, get into Devy, because when you get into Devy, you know guys from Georgia State, you know guys from smaller schools like that, and Ted Hurst has been on the radar for a while. You put up a 961-yard season as a junior and go back to Georgia State, you're going to be on some Devy rosters. So play Devy and college fantasy football.
And shout out to Chef, too. I was really hoping he was going to be here because I know that's his dude as well. And I was very curious of his thoughts and his counterpoint on him, too.
We need more Ted. Make him bigger.
And that's why he's not here right now. He's probably cemented up somewhere in an aisle because he's levitating. He put his name in there.
Just staring at the ceiling while he's got in the wildest of households and bedrooms and stuff, you know, there's mirrors everywhere. Chev in his bedroom just has TV screens everywhere. They're all playing Ted Hurst highlights as he looks at the ceiling.
Yeah,
And his
he was talking
his name in the draft is Thirst.
There it is. It's Ted Thirst. Love it.
No, T Hurst. Thirst.
There it is. Tears. Thirst for Hurst. All right, let's talk about my guy then. I want to hear your thoughts. Obviously, you were really pretty high. Well, we're gonna have to skip Chev's guy because he's not here, but he would have loved to talk about Jacoby Lane. But Bryce Lance, for me, he's been quietly dominating the FSC, and dynasty managers are going to be probably a lot more aware of him moving forward, especially that small school label. We talked about it, but trust me. And when the picks start flying, I think Lance's combination of vertical speed, proven big playability, and is going to force everybody to reevaluate him. He might, get into the perception, really, I think, is day 4, day 5. I'm hoping to see day 2 or maybe day 3 capital. And I think that vertical X receiver, like, DBro mentioned, that Christian Watson-esque, he's got career yards per route run at 3.07. His PFF overall grade is close to 90. 6.7 yards after the catch per reception. That's 9th among wide receivers. 31 missed tackles forced over 2 seasons. Back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons there, as you can see, for North Dakota. I love this guy. He showed out at the combine as well. A 4.34 40-yard dash, a 9.98 relative athletic score. I think he translates really well at the NFL level. Even though he comes from that smaller school, I think his draft stock is going to, really explode. And DBro got him in the 3rd round. Last week, I couldn't even find him on Sleeper. Maybe after the draft, he could be a 2nd-round pick here in Dynasty drafts, in my opinion. He's my wide receiver 9, just like you, DBro.
I love this kid, man. He's one of the guys that I turn on the film, and when you're watching tape, there's moments when I stop and I start giggling or I'm just like sitting in my chair and I'm like, oh, okay, let's go. Bryce Lance is one of those guys, like turning on the film for him, that he could run the entire route tree. And when you look at all of his analytics and the things, talking about Cole Payton but going to Bryce Lance, is when you look at these small school guys, what do you want to see? You want to see a guy that looks like a dude. He looks like he's moving at a different speed, or he's on another level compared to everybody else in the field. Cole Payton did that. Bryce Lance did that. And amongst all FBS and FCS wide receivers in 2025, you talked about his yards per route run. Amongst that large of a sample, Bryce Lance was 6th in yards per route run. He was also 8th. And this is one of the things that I think 2 points of his analytical profile that would go overlooked by people. When you look at a player that had a 14.1 ADOT and a 15.5 ADOT in his final, 14.1 in college overall, 15.5 in his final season, it is noteworthy when a guy is getting deep targets, and that comprised in 2025, deep targets comprised 30% of his target volume.
Yeah.
When you see a guy that is used in that role consistently as a field stretcher, and 2 metrics that jump out to me about Bryce Lance, when you're getting downfield targets and it's that much a part of your usage, it is noteworthy when you have only a 3.8% drop rate. Because the degree of these targets, he's not getting all these layup, behind the line of scrimmage, screen targets, intermediate targets, where the degree of difficulty is not as high. So a drop rate that low, and considering when you get these downfield targets, it's not only a talent thing, but it's a quarterback thing too, where if you're not led down the field or you don't track the ball well, this guy was 8th in yak per reception last year too. So if you're getting downfield targets, you usually see out a lot of the players, the drop rates are higher in that type of role, and they don't produce yak. And yet, Bryce Lance did both.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that Bryce Lance makes me think of is if Lan Larison hadn't gotten hurt last year and he had been allowed to go to the combine and play in the Senior Bowl, like that's the kind of thing that he put on tape. Was he was always the best player on the field. He was always the one that was doing things where you went, wow. And he would have had mid-round draft capital if he hadn't gotten hurt. Bryce Lance got the opportunity to go to the Senior Bowl, to participate in the combine, and all of a sudden all eyes were on him, and everybody's watching the tape going, holy crap, this dude is for real. And I just wanted to throw that out there because it makes me sad.
I'm starting to think that Biggs and Lan Larison are represented by the same agency.
CAA,
baby. CAA, Biggs got to before I could. CAA, baby, they're everywhere. Everywhere and nowhere.
Well, you mentioned the 60-40 contested catch ball with Ted Hurst. Well, I mean, Bryce Lance is actually doing that right now, 61% contested catch rate. So he's showing that downfield. You mentioned the ADOT, so love it. Now, Biggs, let's move on to your guy, and the guy that caused an aneurysm throughout the whole draft. I think I dropped my phone. I had to go for a pee, and some squirted out. So what is happening here with Jaydn Ott, and why are we doing this?
So, okay, full disclosure, I'm a big Cal fan. Jaydn Ott absolutely rang the bell as a freshman and killed it as a sophomore. 1,315 yards rushing. Is that 17 or 12? He had a lot of touchdowns, 12 touchdowns rushing. But he also is a receiving back. He had 46 catches as a freshman. He has the entire skill set. He wasn't invited to the combine. He had a really great Senior Bowl, turned a lot of heads after his bad year at Oklahoma, where it was friction with the coaching staff. He didn't get along with them. He maybe didn't put enough work in. And he got his body in shape and his act together for the postseason pre-draft process. And it shows. His pro day was pretty great. He ran a 4.4640. He's just a guy that can do everything and had an unfortunate blip in his statistical record. But I watched the kid. I've known his talent from the first time he stepped on the field for Cal, and part of this draft process was the bad year at Oklahoma and then not going to the combine. So he's fallen down a ton of draft boards, which makes him an absolute value as somebody who can completely outperform what consensus is on him. If he had stayed at Cal and had another big injury-free year, everybody would be talking about him. He would be like in the top 5 running back discussion, but he's not. And that's why for this exercise, somebody that I'm way higher on than consensus, and I will talk about him ad nauseum. I'll talk about him on every show, every opportunity I get. If you are out there in Dynasty land, you make this guy a draft priority. Do not leave your rookie draft without him.
Biggs, why didn't you draft him in round 3? I mean, if you love him, I don't. Why'd you let him fall? The people at home want to know.
Because I assumed,
I'm gaslighting the hell out of you right now.
I know incorrectly that he would still be there with the last pick, because like I feel like I'm the only one that talks about him, and he's not on a whole lot of radar. So I assumed incorrectly that he'd be there.
Love it.
I also wanted to talk about my Oscar Delp pick, because and so that's why I took Delp there in the 3rd round and not Ott.
Where do you have Ott? Where do you have Ott ranked? By the way, you said you're high on him. Where's he at in your running back rankings?
It's going to take me a while. Maybe Grindberg can get my rankings up quicker.
I could probably do that.
Are they written on a chalkboard somewhere?
No, they're in. There it is. He is.
I have him at RB12 just for reference.
Wow. That's pretty high there, DBro. So you like him as well. So talk.
I like him. I mean, considering I think it's a combination. I like him, and there's a lot of other running backs in this class that I just really I don't like. Considering like I'm not a fan of Damon Claiborne. I'm not a fan of Adam Randall. I'm not a fan of a lot of different running backs that a lot of people are caping up for. So like stacking that up, like Jaydn Ott, the thing, and going back to Biggs' point, like the other thing about 2025 that we didn't talk about yet, he also sustained a shoulder injury. So how much did that play in the fact that he didn't play and stuff outside of coaching stuff and things like that? But like
you
was
see
solid.
The brace on his arm in the picture.
Yeah, I mean he's solid, not amazing, but he's solid across the board, dude. Like 64th in yards after contact per attempt in 2023 and the reason I go all the way back to 2023 is because that's basically the last healthy season we got, because 2025 coaching stuff, and the shoulder injury. 2024, he missed the almost like all of it because, he played for 10 games, but he was limited. He was hurt for most of that.
Right.
Because in 2024, he played through a grade 3 ankle sprain and a grade 1 knee sprain. So going back to 2023, I feel like that is the closest of like facsimile of health that we get to look at what his talent is. And that's why I'm referencing. But those numbers in that season, 64th in yards after contact per attempt, 67th in breakaway rate. They're solid. They're not amazing. But in this class, that buys you a top 12 ranking and running back.
Yeah, he's my RB7. And that 2023 year was him and Fernando Mendoza.
I mean, I'm not going to push back on ranking him that high because, again, like, I think you can make a case. If you love Ott, the case to make for him starts at RB6. Like, where I've got Seth McGowan and Nick Singleton and K-Tron up there and stuff in that 6 to 8 range. But if you were to tell me, like, Ott gets drafted before any of those three guys, I easily could move Ott all the way up to 6, and I wouldn't have a problem with it because I'm not in love with any of those guys either.
Well, you mentioned Damon Claiborne. I have him at RB8, and then Katron Allen I have at RB9, and then RB10.
I have Claiborne at RB17, just so people are aware. I don't like the game at all.
Right. So that's Jaydn Ott for everybody.
All right, Coach, talk about your guy. I mean, you talked a little bit about him earlier, and DBro pushed back a little bit. So let's talk a little bit more about him because you probably have a little bit more prepared.
I'm going to pivot like Ross and Friends, and we cover Jeremy Bernard. I'm going to pivot over to Justin Jolie. One note, though, DBro, you talked about Adam Randall. He went 3-4 in this draft. A salient point for me, it's kind of dawned on me, Adam Randall is the Zachariah Branch of this draft class for the running back class. In that you want to get the ball in his hands in the optimal condition. And if you can just get the ball in his hands in the optimal condition, great things can happen. So I see parallels there between Branch and Randall. It sounds like you're not too high on Adam Randall. But going over to Justin Jolie, I'm just a huge fan. And I think with Stowers and Sadiq, you have the opportunity to have some leverage in this tight end class. And you can go out and get your Gaston or your Fannin, and there's opportunities there. Maybe it's somebody like a Michael Trigg, although based on how his hamstring has gone and that vertical jump that's been out there, people are bearish on Michael Trigg. But I love Justin Jolie. Smooth route running off the lining up in line, in and out of the formation. It's very smooth. He shows as a target for his QB when the play extends. Giant over-the-top reception I saw downfield for a touchdown. He had 5 yards of reception on some all-22 in the Pitt Greg Jennings game. He plays hide and seek. He just appears at the top of the route. A lot of qualities that I saw last year in somebody like Colston Loveland. And then the Greg Jennings touchdown, the real-life Greg Jennings touchdown that he scored, just all the athleticism was on display for Justin Jolie, a real tight end who coaches will say, we can do something with this. Noticeable, he moved around the formation, sides, in line, out of line, in the slot, and whatever the play dictates, he does. So he stays with the play in his blocking. He's sure-handed on tight window throws, brings the ball into his body when needed. There's leverage in tight angles. What could he work on? Inline blocking. Some more could be desired on chip blocking. He's leaving stuff on the table. And then an expanded route tree. But for me, his best comparable on Player Profiler is Hunter Henry. And the nut landing spot for me, the last 2-3 months, I've been talking, can we get Justin Jolie to the New England Patriots where he can be tutored and mentored by somebody like a Hunter Henry and grow in that mold? So that would be a phenomenal run out. And then another spot, Cincinnati Bengals, where there be just an ability to run free over the middle when you have Chase and T. Higgins just wreaking havoc.
Justin Jolie, what's your thoughts, DBro? Are you a fan?
I like him. I don't love him. My only thing do we have testing metrics on him? Because I don't want to know if I missed a pro day or something like that. He didn't test at the combine or didn't have a RAS or anything, right? I'm not missing that.
No.
Okay. My problem with Jolie is I just don't see high-end athleticism with him. I think there's a lot of things to like with him. I look at him as probably being like a high 4.6, maybe low 4.7 speed guy. And with tight end, it's not just about their game and their film, but like so many of the high-end outcomes in fantasy, which we're all chasing for me at tight end, is all tied to athleticism. Like you can go back for like, I mean, it's every single guy. Like basically, if a tight end doesn't run a 4.7 or lower, cross them off your board. Any guy that runs a higher than a 4.7, they will not be fantasy relevant. You could talk about like the only two guys that have been above a 4.7 over the last like decade plus that have been mildly fantasy relevant have been Kyle Rudolph and Isaiah Likely, and it's end of list. So like with Jolie, I got athleticism questions with him. Some of the metrics are good and solid. Like can he break tackles? Absolutely. My closest comp for him is actually Cade Stover, which I saw in a very similar light in previous years in draft classes. Now Cade Stover never popped. A lot of the things were injuries and what have you with that, but a player that if he got an absolute great landing spot, could I see him develop into like being a low end tight end one in fantasy or like a top 15 guy where then you're just kind of playing okay, what's the touchdown in the red zone run out game with? And if that happens, could he be that type of guy? Yeah, I could see that. But like, I just don't see high end outcomes with him. And that's where I'm like, I like him. I don't love him.
Fair.
I think he needs a mentorship, some tutelage somewhere, because there is some raw parts to his game. And then that's ideally, hopefully he gets a landing spot where he can be tied to somebody, like you say, with a fine wine. As tight ends age, it's like fine wine and it takes some development. And for me, round 3, it becomes get your guy season. And it's funny enough, in this draft, as it played out, DBro and team, people got sniped. You know, Coltavius Payton should have gone in round 3 if we really wanted him, right?
Fair. That's a fair point. That's a fair point. But you know what? Y'all let Bryce Lance slip to me in round 3, so I couldn't pass that up. And I was willing to kick the can down the road with Cole Payton. And unfortunately,
DBro, did you feel like Jim Carrey and Ace Ventura, where you're throwing you a spear and you don't know which one to get because you had so many players on the board you want?
Yeah, Grindberg definitely hit me in the thigh with that one, no doubt.
I love it.
All right,
I dare you. We got the Jeremie Bernard tile up. Just wanted to point out in 2023 at Washington, Jeremie Bernard was wide receiver 4 behind 3 NFL draftees, Jalen McMillan, Romo Dunze, and Jalen Polk. For whatever that's worth.
I was to say, have any of those guys turned out to be good though? Like really good?
Not really, really good, but they're all on
McMillan might.
Not Polk.
Let's see what Rome could do. Unfortunately, Caleb will have to learn how to actually throw deep targets well. We'll see.
To get to Rome, yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, Schultzy, bring us home with your guy, and we'll talk about him. Oh, sorry. There you go.
Well, we both clicked it. Yep. I took the assignment as who I literally think is going to rise the most at post NFL draft, and I think it's Chris Brazell. The measurables are off the charts. He's going to steam up to a value where I'm not going to be taking him, and I'm going to say that right now. NFL GMs are going to fall in love with the measurables and what they think they can do with this guy, and there's going to be a GM who is going to be the classic girl who says I can fix him. My prediction is someone's going to trade up for this guy, and it's gonna send the fantasy space into a storm, right? So an NFL team loves this guy that much. That means I should too. The measurables are all there. However, the range of outcomes is massive here to me. I think we could look anywhere from Stephen Hill up to Brian Thomas Jr. I think Brian Thomas Jr. stuff is a little accurate. Coming out, like there's a lot of similarities there in the very limited route tree and how he got used in this Tennessee offense. But when you watch him, though, there is like I see the flashes. I'm not gonna fault anybody for going here because I see some of the flashes. Like he'll be taking a route on a go, but he'll just snap it off onto a comeback, and then you'll be like, "Whoa, okay, I see it." Like you see flashes of more to his game than just the deep threat. But on the deep threat stuff too, I watched this guy take underthrown balls, jump up, make a grab over a defender, brush him off and run for a touchdown. So I get the flashes. I don't fault anyone for going there. I just think the price is going to get too rich for my blood for the potential crash out here.
So you think he's going to have a really big draft stock after this, right? I mean, he's going to skyrocket.
100%. Yes.
I love Chris Brazell. I have him pretty highly ranked. I think he's my. Let me pull up my rankings here, Biggs. I think he's my wide receiver 8. Yeah, right around there. Anyway, so highly touted for me. I think he's got that pedigree. Obviously, the uniform people are worried about, with the last couple of guys coming from Tennessee, and we got to have that red flag up, and maybe that's what you're scouting here, Schultzy, and your analysis. But
I don't think it has anything to do with just the fact that he's a Tennessee receiver. If I'm drafting like where he went in, I would have taken Jacoby Lane over him. Like, I think Jacoby Lane is going to be a dang good NFL player. And when you're just a dang good football player, that tends to translate to some fantasy success. So for me, give me a guy like him or like Elijah Surratt, who I feel really good about just being a really solid NFL receiver. And that's where I'm going to go in that range.
Are we thinking round 2 draft capital for Brazell?
I think he's round 3. I think people are trying to shove so many names into round 2, and there's only 32 selections that I think there's too many good tackles and defensive players and what have you that a lot of these. I think there's a shelf of Brazell, Hurst, Bryce Lance, and probably one or the two other like Chris Bell and stuff that are going to go in round 3, and everybody's like, "Oh, he could go in round 2." It's like, dude, there's only 32 picks. Does everybody know? Is that right? So Schultzy, I actually want to weigh in on Brazell real fast here, man. Like, he's my wide receiver 10. I could start making the case for him as my wide receiver 8. I just like Hurst and Lance a little bit more. But if you're telling me both those guys go in round 5 and Brazell goes in round 3 or round 2, then I'm going to vault him above those two guys. Yeah. I think the Tennessee helmet scouting is absolutely wrong. And I'll say that with my chest here. That if you watch the film on Brazell and you compare it to like a Jalen Hyatt, I was never in on, because the way that they used a lot of these other guys in this Heupel system was bunch formations, free releases, stacked formations, and these guys aren't having to earn anything, especially in college where they're facing like off coverage at least half their snaps, if not in some games, most of their snaps. Where you look at a guy with Brazell, that wasn't the case. It wasn't stacked formations, bunches, and stuff, and getting these easy open looks. This guy, especially for his freaking size, man, he's got route running chops. At his size, he can sink and decelerate and explode. You don't see that all the time for guys that are at his size. And the thing with Brazell is that, and the hole in his game. And I think right now, if he doesn't grow anymore in his game, I think you're looking at like a wide receiver 3, a field stretching type. Like, my comp for him is Tyrell Williams. That type of player in the NFL, I think, is going to have a lot of fantasy value. But if he can do, and the big part of his game that I want to see the evolution of his game is, for a big man, he plays small at the catch point. The play strength is a problem for him. And that's whether you're talking about contested catch looks, if he gets guys that can run with him and get physical in routes. You'll see the highlight reel stuff where like they'll show like the highlight reel stuff and he comes down with a contested catch or the body control. The body control is there, but the play strength is not. If he can increase the play strength, and whether that's a technique thing combined with dude needs to hit the weight room, and if he can improve that, he can grow and be a wide receiver 1 in an NFL offense. And I will say that with my chest. But going back to this, it shows up in the analytics, a 40.8% contested catch rate in college. That's the problem in the hole in his game, and where I think that he is the floor to be a wide receiver 3 and a field stretcher in the NFL, but the ceiling to be a wide receiver 1 when we flip over the cards in 3 years and we're saying, who's the guy out of this class that we're looking at that could enter the NFL and have a very Alec Piercian rise in the NFL? Chris Brazell is that guy.
Love it.
Yeah, I don't fault anyone for taking a shot. Like I said, the flash is there. And like I said, that Georgia game, he's like mossing dudes. And that's where you see the flashes. But then, like you said, he never posted a single season with a plus 50% contested catch rate. And so, like you said, the average brings it down to 40. And you don't even have a spike season in there on that.
Yep. Because he plays small. Like, that's the hole in his game where the route running says this guy could become a high-end target earner in an offense. But if he can't increase the play strength, he could just get pigeonholed into a speed-only field stretcher. So we'll see.
I have him as my wide receiver 10 also, so I feel like me and DBro are in lockstep with that one.
Let's go.
There you go. All right. DBro, man. Great show. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you for joining us for the first hour of the Dynasty Pulse. We're going to drop a commercial real quick and stay tuned for the second hour of the Dynasty Pulse.
No, we're good. Man, what a great show. Your analysis was spot on as usual. I love your takes. They're wild sometimes, and they're important for us, right? They're great to get us open-minded to some of these guys that maybe are under the radar, and the Bryce Lances and the Cole Paytons of the world. Many people aren't attuned to, and now they are. So love it, man. Tell everybody what you're doing right now again, and where to find all your awesome stuff.
Appreciate it, guys. Again, like anytime we can hop on here and talk ball, I think it's a blessing. So love y'all guys. Like, thank you for the time. Thank you for having me for a third consecutive show. Hopefully we're firing this up next year again, and it's it's go time for the 4th and the 5th and what have you. But
that's when you get the jacket.
Oh, good. I can't wait. Hold on. It's not a gold jacket. Is it like teal? Like, what are we talking about?
The gold jacket is number 5.
Bomber jacket, or is this like dress wear? Am I putting some slack?
With a patch. There's a patch, too.
Sport jacket, sport coat, so that you can wear it to all the functions.
Sign me up. I mean, I want to be the guy that people could still see me when all the lights are off at the bar at 3 a.m. At the expo.
Sequins. We're doing sequins now.
I'm here for it. Yeah. Glow in the dark paint, the full 9, man. But all the content's at Fantasy Pros. Again, I'm building to my top 100. That'll be live for the NFL draft. My prospect primers, quarterback, running back is already live. Wide receiver should go live Monday if I can get through the rest of these write-ups, but it will be live at least at bare minimum sometime next week. Tight ends will follow that. Please check out all the content on the YouTube channels, Fantasy Pros, the Fantasy Pros Dynasty channel, and the Tailgate if you want all the NFL talk. Boys, I love you. Thank you.
Love it, man. Appreciate it. Biggs, take us home, man.
Well, go ahead and subscribe, hit the bell, all that good stuff. Go to FantasySportsAdvice.com and pick up your 2026 Rookie Prospect Guide. We put a lot of work into it. It's pretty dope. And there you will find things like Jaydn as my number 7 running back and Chris Brazell as my number 10 wide receiver, and other fun stuff. We got a lot of analytics in it. We got a lot of tape grinding in it. We got a lot of observations and everything. It's going to be valuable for your Dynasty draft. If you're over here from the Fantasy Forecast and you've never played Dynasty Fantasy Football before, drop your name in the comments and we will hook you up with a Fantasy Sports Advice Network Dynasty League. If you have played and you want to beat the experts, hit us up there and you can try and play against us. We'll do a startup draft later on in the year. And intermediates, if you've played before but you want to keep playing with FSAN watchers and listeners, then go ahead and drop in the comments. Other than that, we hope you win.
Hope you win, folks. Peace out.
Good show, boys.
Oh, great show.